Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I, Muhammad Haziq, Danial bin Rahim, and my other two group member, that is Muhammad Kamil Ariff and Ahmad Ilham Zuhairi, will present about unique characteristic of plantae, Byrophyte and Pteridophyte. I will start first by presenting about unique characteristic of plantae. In this slide we can see there are four unique characteristic of plantae. One is multicellular eukaryote because plant is a complex organism. Second, plantae is an autotroph because plantae produce its own food through process photosynthesis. Plants also store its food in the form of a starch. And lastly, the main component of the cell wall is cellulose. Plants are believed to evolve from a green algae. Why? Because both algae and plant have similar characteristic. The similar characteristic that they have is chlorophyll. Both have chlorophyll A and B and carotenoid. They also store reserve foods in the form of starch. Lastly, the main component of cell wall for the both plant and algae is cellulose. Plant need special or unique characteristic to survive on the land. One of the unique characteristic that they have is they have vascular tissue. We know that vascular tissue is divided by two main component, phloem and xylem. This tissue, both tissue, xylem and phloem, is needed for plant to transport water and nutrient. They also have waxy cuticle. The main function of waxy cuticle is to prevent or to minimize water loss and prevent from pathogen entry. The third is protected reproductive structure for retention of the embryonic sporophyte within the female. Last is leaf has stomata. Stomata is the place where the gases exchange occur between oxygen and carbon dioxide. It also prevent water loss. Plants also have reproductive structure, same like human. The female organ called archegonium, while the male organ called enteridium. Female organ is an egg, while the male organ is sperm. It will fertilize and form zygote. It will develop in female organ called gametodium. The next is about alteration generation that I will explain about multicellular haploid stage and multicellular diploid stage. Haploid generation, gametophyte generation that give rise to haploid male and female gamete by mitosis, while diploid generation, sporophyte generation that give rise to haploid spore by meiosis. We can see in the picture the sporophyte multicellular diploid 2N will undergo process meiosis and will produce haploid spore. So this is haploid generation started, while diploid generation started when gamete fertilized, like sperm fertilized with an egg, so it will form zygote. So this is the first process diploid generation started. See from the picture, we can know the detail about haploid gametophyte generation and diploid sporophyte generation. Firstly, it must start with the gamete. The gamete will produce by mitosis. So sperm and egg from the female organ and male organ will fertilize and form zygote. So the zygote will be developed by mitosis into the sporophyte. So after it fertilized, it enter the diploid sporophyte generation. Special cell of the sporophyte undergo meiosis to form spore. And lastly, each spore has the potential to undergo mitosis and develop into gametophyte. So it will enter back to the haploid gametophyte generation from diploid sporophyte generation. So this cycle will keep repeating. So the last part is classification of plantae. So it divided by two, non-vascular and vascular. So in non-vascular, it has Byrophyte. Byrophyte is divided by three: phylum Bryophyta, phylum Hepatoph, phylum Enterocerop. And the vascular, in the is divided by two, seedless and seed, but we just cover about seedless. It name is Pteridophytes, divided by two, phylum Pterophyta and phylum Byrophyta. As also Ahmad and Zuhairi will present about Byrophytes.
Now we are going to talk about Byrophytes. Bryophyte is small flowerless green plants in the division of Bryophyta. It usually located in humid areas. It also do not have a true stem, leaf, and root. It's also a rhizosupported plants which grow close to the ground. For transportation of organic molecules and water, it has a specialized conducting tissue because it do not have lignin in their cell wall. Let's move on to the unique characteristics. Rhizoid binds the bryophytes to the substratum. Rhizoid do not play a major part in absorption of water and minerals because of the absence of specialized conducting cells. It also a small or low growing plants because of the absence of vascular tissue. Now we are going to talk about reproductive characteristics. For both asexual and sexual reproduction, it requires a watery medium. For asexual reproduction, a gamma need a water medium to disperse from the gamma cup, while in sexual reproductions, flagellated sperm require a water medium to swim to the archegonia. Gametophyte is the dominant generation because of its large in size and long-lived, while Sporophytes is small in size and short-lived. However, Sporophytes depends on Gametophytes for nutrients and water because Gametophytes can carry out photosynthesis. Gametangium are produced by haploid Gametophytes. Haploid gametes are produced and developed within the gametangium. There are two types of gametangiums, which is archegoniums and also antheridium. Archegonium is a female gametangium which produces an egg cell, while antheridium is a male gametangium which produced biflagellated sperm cells. Now let's move on to the classifications. There are phylum Hepatophyta, phylum Bryophyta, and also phylum Anthocerophyta. Now let's go in depth with phylum Bryophyta. Mosses are the largest groups of bryophytes. Sporophytes consist of three parts, which is seta, food, and capsule. Seta is a connecting stalk between gametophytes to sporangiums. Food is where to transport the water and nutrients from gametophytes to the capsules where spores are produced. For phylum Hepatophyta, it has a flattened thallus or leafy appearance. For the upper surface, it's smooth, while for the lower surface, it has a unicellular rhizoid. It lacks of stomata, so it only uses air pores for gases exchange. For phylum Anthocerophyta, it grows in moist, shaded, and warm temperate climates. The gametophytes looks like thallus liverworms. The sporophytes is photosynthetic and provide energy for reproduction and growth. For the first terrestrial adaptation, bryophyte is a multicellular dependent embryo because photosynthesis provide developed embryo with nutrients and water. The second terrestrial adaptation is water conservation by waterproof cuticle. Cuticle coats the epidermis of leaf and other aerial parts to prevent the bryophytes from being desiccated, which is excessive loss of water. And for the last terrestrial adaptations, which is wall spores produced in sporangium, which make bryophytes tough and resistant to a harsh environment. There are several applications of bryophytes in real life. One of them is bryophyte is used as a bioindicators of the environment because of their special ability to absorb pollutants. Other applications of bryophytes is in medicals, which they can cure skin disease, cardiovascular disease, and many more.
So I will continue for the unique characteristic of Pteridophyte. The first one is seedless plant, and the second one is the dominant generation is Sporophytes, and the third one is sexual reproduction, and next is true roots, stem and leaf, and the last one is vascular plant. So for the first characteristic, it is seedless plant. Seedless plants means plants that do not produce seeds. For example, in the slide is fern. Next point is vascular plant. So vascular plant have simple and also vascular tissue. Vascular tissue contain xylem and also phloem, which is the function is to transport water and minerals and also to provide mechanical support. But vascular tissue is not well developed and it also non-complex vascular system. For the third characteristic, the dominant generation is Sporophyte. It is because it is long-lived and also large in size. So, for mature Sporophytes, it is not dependent on gametophyte because mature Sporophyte can carry out photosynthesis by itself. For the young Sporophyte, it is dependent on gametophyte for nutrition. We go to the next characteristic, which is true roots, stems and also leaves. It is due to the presence of vascular tissue, which is xylem and phloem. Last characteristic, which is the reproduction. Reproduction of Pteridophytes must needs the watery medium. Most of the habitat is like damp place or moist place. So fertilization is dependent on watery medium. So the flagellated sperm cells must swim through a film of water to reach the egg cells. Pteridophytes reproduce sexually by producing spores for dispersion. There are two types of Pteridophytes, which is homosporous and also heterosporous. Homosporous is one type of sporangium that produce one type of spores. For example, Lycopodium sp and also Diopteris sp. The second one is heterosporous. So heterosporous is it has two types of sporangia that produce two types of spore, which is microspore and also megaspore. For example, is Selaginella sp. We continue to the homosporous Pteridophytes. So it starts with sporangium, which is 2N. Then it undergoes meiosis process, which is it will reduce the number of chromosome by half, and then it will become spores, which is N. Then spores will develop into bisexual gametophytes that consist of Archegonia and also Atridia. So Archegonia produce egg cell and Atridia will produce sperm cells. The second one is heterosporous Pteridophytes. So the process it starts with megasporangium and also microsporangium, which is both of them consist of 2N. So both of them will undergo meiosis process and become megaspore and also microspore. Then megaspore will develop into unisexual female gametophytes. Microspore will develop into unisexual male gametophytes. So for the female gametophyte, it consists of Archegonia and will produce the egg cell. For the unisexual male gametophyte, it consists of Atridia and will produce sperm cell. Next, the classification of Pteridophytes. So Pteridophytes contain two phylum, which is phylum Lycopodiophyta and also phylum Pteridophyta. For the phylum Lycopodiophyta, it contains two genus, which is Lycopodium sp and also Selaginella sp. For the phylum Pteridophyta, it contains Diopteris sp genus. The first phylum is phylum Lycopodiophyta, or also known as Lycophyta. The plants in this phylum are commonly called club mosses or also ground pines. So the main comparison plants of this phylum are, the first one Lycopodium sp and the second one is Selaginella sp. For the Lycopodium sp, it is homosporous plant. For the Selaginella sp, it is heterosporous plant. For Lycopodium sp, its spores will develop into bisexual gametophytes it having both male and female sex organ. For the Selaginella sp, megaspores will develop into female gametophytes, while microspores will develop into male gametophyte. We go to the structure of Lycopodium sp. It has three structure, which is microphyls, strobilus, and also sporophylls. Next one is Selaginella sp structure. As we know, the Selaginella sp is heterosporous plant. So for microsporangium, it contains male microspores. For the megasporangiums, it contains developing female megaspores. We go to the next phylum, which is phylum Pteridophyta. The genus is Byrophytes sp. So we can see the parts of the fern. It contains frond and also roots. Frond known as megaphylls that attach to rhizome. It will develop from coil leaf bud, which is fiddlehead, and also it will divided into pinnae and subdivided into pinnules. For the roots is always fibrous. The stems of ferns are at the underground of rhizome. We will continue about koru. So basically, koru is a spiral shape that appear from unfurling silver fern frond, which came from ponga plant. It is the symbol of new life, growth, strength, and also peace. So for gametophyte of Byrophytes sp, it consists of protellus and also rhizoids. So for the protellus, it is green, heart-shaped photosynthetic structure, and it produces archegonia and also antheridia on its undersides. So for the rhizoids, it is the anchor the protellus to the soil. So the next slide is process to become spore from indusium. So indusium is the transparent structure. Sorus is the cluster of sporangia. Usually it is located on underside of frond. Then next we go to the sporangium. Sporangium is the multicellular organs that produce spores. And then spores are released when sporangium is ruptured. We will go to the last slide, which is the differences between phylum in Pteridophytes. So the first phylum is phylum Lycopodiophyta, and the second phylum is phylum Pteridophyta. For the first phylum, it is small, scaly leaf called sporophyll. For the second phylum, it is the leaf is called frond, and also the pinnae will divided into pinnules. So the next one, the first phylum is contains sporangia on sporophyll that are grouped together and will forming strobilus. For the second phylum, the cluster of sporangia, which is sorus, on the back of the sporophyll. For the first phylum, the gametophyte body lack of chlorophyll, while the second phylum, the gametophyte of body contain protellus that have chlorophyll for uses of photosynthesis.